Alright, now, it's time to continue working on our project and start doing our player movement and some other basic mechanics. And before we go into our actual coding part, I want to explain you a few things, how they work and how those mechanics can be done. Because I don't like going directly into the coding, because you might be completely new to Unity and programming in general, or maybe you are a beginner. And it will be harder for you to understand if we just go directly and quote some lines. And I don't want that. I want you to actually understand what and why exactly we are doing it. Okay. If we select the player, we will see that it has these free arrows. Because we are in the three-dimensional game. Free the game, right? Okay, and those arrows have different colors and Unity. Blue arrow. So this arrow is considered to be our Z direction. Orange is considered to be X, and green is considered to be Y. And if we, for example, select player and if you check the Z position, when I move my player forward and backward, as you see my Z direction is changed. Z is changing, so it means that the Z arrow. Blue arrow is considered to be our forward direction. So forward then backward direction. Now this orange arrow. As I see when we change this orange arrow, X is changing, so it means that it's for the left and right movement. And well, green is for the Y direction. And we will talk about Y when we will do jumping. But for now, in order to make our player move, it means that we should change position of our player. On the Z to move forward, and on the X to move left and right. Alright, there is few ways how we can handle our player movement. One of the ways, and one of the most common ways, is to add some player controller into character controller. Into our game, objecting to our player, which will help us to move. And character controller is built in packaging, Unity standard package. So to add that package, we just need to select player. Let's scroll down in this picture. On the right side here, we will see the set component. Let's hit it, and in the search box, we can type character controller just like this. Now this character controller already has the collider inside, so what we can do, we can uncheck capsule collider, because we don't need to have this capsule collider anymore, and we will talk about colliders very shortly. But for now, we have the character controller applied to our player perfectly, and with the help of character controller, we will be able to move, because this character controller has built-in method, which is called move. And I will show you when we go in the coding part. But the next thing that you should know is that Unity has some input manager to access what inputs we are getting from the player. For example, we have inputs of our keys on our keyboard. We have inputs for the mouse and so on. And if we go in far and edit project settings here, we will find this input manager, which has these axes as you see. And there is different inputs, which are available into this project, into this input manager, and it also has this horizontal, and where to call inputs. That's exactly what we are looking for, because if you open the horizontal, you see it already has some keys. So N and D left and right. It means that if we access this horizontal input from our script, and if we get information about horizontal input from our script, when we click, for example, and D or left and right, Unity will automatically know that we are referring to the axis, and we want to have some left and right directions. Same goes for the vertical axis. And we can basically use both of them into our script. Okay, now let's go and actually start coding. And for that, we obviously will need to have some kind of C# script for that. And for the better organization, First of all, let's go in the Assets folder. On the empty space, right-click Create Folder. And let's call this one Scripts. And we will save all of the scripts into the Scripts folder, so let's open Scripts folder. Right-click Create C# script. And let's call this one Player Movement. Just one rule to remember. It should not have any kind of space in the name of your script. Otherwise, you will get some error. So type your name of your script without any kind of space, and well, it will be good. If you start writing with the first capital letter, it's just a good practice. So just 2 rules: start with a capital letter, and you don't have any kind of space, okay? Let's open the script in the Visual Studio. And this is the default look. And we have 2 functions by default. Wait start, which is called when our game starts first. And wait update. And it's called when every single frame basically. And before the start, you see we have some space now. And here we can create some variables. Now, if you don't know anything about variables, variables are just like containers. And we can store some information, store some data there, and then simply use them very easily into our actual code. And for that, we can, for example, create some variable, and we can say public floats. And let's call this one more speed. So let's say we need to have some container to save our speed. And because we obviously will need to use some speed into our actual game for our player to basically move, well, you see, this is just basic line how we can create some variables. And if you know nothing about variables, they are different types of variables. You see, we used floats. Floats are used when we are referring to numbers. And since our speed is number, that's why we are creating type of float. But they are other types of variables as well. So they are floats and integers, they are strings, doubles, and so on and so on. If you want to check all the variables, you can just Google C# variables and you will easily find them. But of course, I will explain you all the variables that we will create. So right now, we have the variable for the move speed, and it's public. Well, when we make variable public, it means that you will save the script. For example, let's save the script and let's go back. We will be able to see that variable into our Unity editor so well. To do that, first of all, we should assign the script into some game object, into our scene. And since it's the player movement script, it will be logical to assign the script into our player right. To assign script, we just need to take the script and drop it into our player. And we select player. Now, if we scroll down, we should see this player movement script here. If you don't see the script, well, let me remove it for a moment. There is alternate way you can select player and hit this add component. And in the search box, type name of your script, which is player moment. Alright, anyway, when we add the script, we see this move speed. Well, if it was the private variable, we will not be able to see move speed here. And that's the main difference basically. And having move speed for public, for example, will be better than private because, for example, we might change the move speed quite often if we don't like it when we test our game. So, it will be logical to be able to change our variable from the Unity editor directly. Alright, okay, let's continue. Well, next thing that we will need is to have reference to this character controller. And to do that, we can say private. This time we are using private. And let's call private character controller. And let's call this one car controller. Char controller, just like this. Basically, we can name it anything that we like our containers. But try to be logical in order to have some easy understanding code. Well, we have the container of character controller. But Unity does not know what we are referring with this word just yet. So what we should do, we should basically somehow get reference to this specific character controller. And to do that, there is one method, which is called getComponent method. And for example, we can go in the void start and say, our char controller equals getComponent. And the component name that we are looking is obviously character controller brackets semicolon. And that's it. Now when we will use this char controller, Unity will check our player. And we'll find this character controller because we are searching for the character controller. And it will know that, yeah, we are referring to our character controller. Alright. Also, as I said, we will need to access our inputs. Our horizontal and vertical inputs, the ones that I showed you before. And we will need some variables, some containers for them as well. So let's create private floats. Horizontal inputs and private floats vertical input. Those will be our containers for our inputs. We will also need to have some vector free. Vector free is just a point which has free dimensions free parameters x, y, and z, and it will be for our player's direction. So let's create private vector free. And let's call this one move direction. Just like these, alright. We have everything to start working. Now in the update, first thing that we will do, we will get information about our horizontal and vertical input and store them into our variables, into our horizontal input and vertical input variable. And to do that, to get information about our horizontal input, for example, we just need to say input .get access or any brackets and quotation marks. We should say horizontal, but be careful. Everything is case sensitive here in quotation marks, so you should type it correctly. This horizontal, otherwise this method will not work. Well, we have access to our horizontal input, and as I said, we should also store this horizontal input into our variable of the horizontal input. Well, it's quite easy in front of it. We just need to say horizontal input equals this. And that's it. Now we have information about horizontal input, and we are storing it into the swearing. And we should do same for the vertical input. So we will say vertical input equals input. No index input. Get access raw. And in brackets and quotation marks, we can say vertical. That's it. We have the horizontal and where to call input. Let me keep few space and well. As I said, we are able to move with the help of character controller. And I mentioned that it has the built-in function with the name of move. So for example, we can say char controller move, and well, this move, if we power over to it, -1, as we see, it needs to have some kind of vector-free motion. That's exactly. We created this direction of vector 3. So it means that we can use this move direction here. So we can say move direction. Well, it's all nice, but the problem is that we don't know what is this move direction just yet, because right now it's just empty container. So we should say to Unity, what is this move direction at all? So we can say here, simply move direction equals new vector 3. Well, this is just how we are giving our game object some kind of direction. We are creating new vector free, so new points. And as I said, this vector 3 takes free values, free parameters x, y, and z. And if you remember, as I said, we should, in order to move our player, we should change the position on the z and on the x. Well, Y is for jumping, so we don't care about Y just yet. So for the X and for the Z for now. And for that, we can use these inputs. Information about our inputs. So we can simply say horizontal inputs. And we can multiply to some speed to help out some speed. That's why we created some more speed wearable comma. That's 40x our horizontal input 40y. Well, as I said, we don't care about y just yet. So we will say 0f and after that 40z. Well, we will pass our vertical input and we will multiply to some move speed. And that's pretty much it how we can make our player move. We will have only one problem because right now our game object will just fly around like crazy. And to smooth our movement, what we can do, we can multiply this move direction to time. dot delta time. This time dot delta time is time between frames in, and it will help us to normalize our movement. And that's pretty much it, how you can easily move your players. With the help of character controller, we just needed to know that it has the function of move, which takes one variable of move direction. And for the move direction, where we just took information about our inputs, and we multiply it to some speed. So let's say your script. And let's go back in Unity. Let's check if everything is working well. First of all, let's select player. Let's scroll down. It has this move speed. Let's make move speed to be 5, for example. And let's hit play. We can always change this move speed, by the way. Well, as you see, we are able to move. Our player is not on the ground just yet, but it's okay. Main point is that we are indeed able to move. And we can save the scene. I'll end this video over here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any new videos. See you in the next videos.